Morning.
Good morning.
It is my privilege to speak to you today on the 13th anniversary of the official observance of National Vietnam War Veterans Day. It is also the 52nd anniversary of the withdrawal of the last combat troops from Vietnam in 1973. Two groups of veterans are being honored today. Those who served in the U.S. military between 1955 and May of 1970, regardless of where they served. And the other group are those who served in uniform in Vietnam between August 1962 and March of 1973. Now my remarks today are going to be addressed to this latter group service. Now Father Tommy has backed me into a difficult place because I'm sure you will be happy to know that I had absolutely no intention of talking about myself. But now that you said something, at least I have to justify my being here. I was in the United States Navy. I served in Vietnam from 1969 to 70 aboard USS Crockett, PG-88, a patrol gunboat that operated in the Long River in very southern Vietnam and the Cam Ranh Peninsula. We provided gunfire support to a unit called Sea Float, which was the base for both ARVN, SEALs, PBRs, and PCFs. And we were ambushed at one time. And that's all about it. The Vietnam Service Medal, again, was awarded to those who served in, over, or in the offshore waters of Vietnam during that period I mentioned, from 1962 to 1973. And the message I would like to leave with you today is a very simple one: the importance of duty and the honor and pride that comes with doing your duty. But this message applies not just to those of us who served in Vietnam. It applies to everyone. Now, there were 2,700,000 of us who were in Vietnam over the years, and 11,000 of those were women. We must not forget the women. About 90% of those 11,000 were nurses. About 1,900,000 of us are still alive. And you have heard some of the numbers. You know that 58,000 or more than 58,000 were killed. 8 of those who were killed were nurses. 75,000 of us were disabled. 23,000 were 100% disabled. What you may not know is that 2/3 of those who served in Vietnam were volunteers. And approximately 70% of those who were killed were volunteers. Now, just this past Thursday, I was in Washington babysitting for my grandchildren, an indication of how old we are. And I visited the Vietnam War Memorial. The base of the wall was strewn with tributes, letters, flowers, poems, memorabilia of all sorts. Hundreds of people respectfully passed through. Many of them were Vietnam veterans, many in wheelchairs. And I was struck by how old they were. But then I thought, well, I guess I'm really looking in the mirror, aren't I? We are old. None of us is younger than 70, except, of course, for the women who served. And they will never grow old. But as old people do, we look back on our time there, and we know that it was one of the most important experiences of our lives. Now, many people recognize the importance of this service at this time. You may be amused to know that out of the 2,700,000 people who served in Vietnam, 13 million Americans in the census of 2020 claimed to have served there. Just shows how important the place is. That is certainly a tribute to us. But this experience was painful for many. Some of us were in combat. Many were not. Many of us, and this includes the nurses, medical personnel, were wounded, physically or psychologically, or both. But I think the majority of us escaped unscathed. A few of us performed extraordinary acts of courage. Sometimes in one brief, danger-ridden moment of combat, sometimes day after day, doing our duty in the face of uncertainty, fear, and fatigue. These were heroes. Some received medals, many did not. At the wall, I saw a tribute to a soldier who had been killed by a landmine. While he was involved in a mine-clearing operation, he had been doing nothing special except his duty. He received a Purple Heart, no medal, no Bronze Star, no medal for courage. Yet, he was a hero. He knew the danger of what he was doing, and he did it. He did his duty. He and all the others deserve our undying respect. Why? Not for his heroism, not for our heroism, not for your heroism, but because they did what they did, not for themselves, but for others. For our comrades in arms. And although I have said that 2/3 of us were volunteers, this concept of duty and selfless service makes the distinction between volunteers and draftees irrelevant, because everyone, draftee and volunteer, did his duty. We admire the volunteers because they sought out the challenge and the danger, but we must also admire the draftees, who, though reluctant, did their duty as citizens and as comrades. And the price of war, death, trauma, disfigurement, made no distinction between draftee and volunteer. When we, volunteers and draftees, look back, we know that while we were there, all of us, in combat units, in the rear echelon, medical support, we understood our duty and we did it for our comrades, for our own self-respect, and I would like to think, for our country. 13 years ago, President Obama proclaimed this date, March 29th, to be Vietnam Veterans Day, and his proclamation read in part, "The Vietnam War is a story of service members of different backgrounds, colors, and creeds who came together to complete a daunting mission. It is a story of Americans from every corner of our nation who left the warmth of family to serve the country they love." But it goes on to state, in one of the war's most profound tragedies, many of these men and women came home to be shunned or neglected, to face treatment unbefitting their courage, and a welcome were unworthy of their example. We must never let this happen again. Now I'm going to repeat that. A welcome unworthy of their example. We did not expect a homecoming parade, and we certainly didn't expect to be treated as heroes. But upon our return, if we weren't called the baby killer, familiar with that term, I think, we were often looked upon as tools of imperialism, or as fools for having wasted our time and our youth, or as unfortunate victims who missed out on the job market, college, whatever. Yet many of us, even those who escaped unhurt, had our lives disrupted, our relationships often damaged. But a survey of Vietnam veterans conducted in the late 1990s revealed two important facts. 91% of those said they were glad they had served, and 74% said they would serve again, even knowing the outcome. Let me close by going back to that phrase in the last paragraph of the proclamation. Those who returned faced a welcome unworthy of their example. What was that example? It was an example of service and the performance of duty. From that service, we and our countrymen learned an important lesson. Doing one's duty, however difficult and however much it may cost, is valuable and honorable. And in this we can and should take pride. Would those here who served in Vietnam please stand up? I'd like to thank them.